Happy Sunday afternoon, everybody. Thought today I'd like to look at Jeff Zients' testimony in the Biden AutoPen presidency oversight. I think happened back in July. And I want to talk about what the last chief of staff for Biden has to say, because he's the one closest to it. All this pardons happened and the supposed AutoPen events. But let's talk about Jeff Zients before we jump into the video. Here's Jeff. Oh, I got to share my screen. First off, you won't see that. So here's Jeff. Jeff's a good old boy, right? I mean, born and privileged, Jeff Zients, from a Jewish family, Kensington, Maryland, very expensive area. Went to St. Albans School, 84. Did great at Bain & Company. Became a chief operating officer of a major company, and by the time he was like 35 years old, he had made his net worth was $149 million, which was crazy, right? That's kind of crazy. Fortune's made in 40 under 40. Tried to buy the Washington Nationals with Colin Powell and others. They weren't successful, and then he started working in government in 2009. OMB. Then they asked him to fix healthcare.gov, which I guess he did. I don't know. It was horrible. I was working on healthcare.gov at the time. And then National Council, and then the whole 9 yards in reference to all of his other stuff that he's done. So that's Jeff, born in 1966. So let's look at the video real quick, hit some of the highlights, and I might probably go quickly over some of the pieces in this video because some of it, quite honestly, is a little, quiet. So I might go through some. And yeah, so let's look at this. Okay. All right. So here's Jeff.
That would not be necessary.
And just, I really don't know. What was your level? I think you just said that you were not in every meeting when it came to pardon discussions. Was that not part of your usual portfolio as chief of staff?
As chief of staff, everything is at some level part of your portfolio.
Sure.
And your job is to make sure that the president has what he needs to make decisions. He has the materials he needs, that he has the right people in the room. And the right people in the room,
he's just
at all times, included his White House counsel and Bruce as deputy chief of staff. That's the chief of staff's job. No chief of staff could ever be in every meeting on every issue, or they wouldn't be doing their job. The chief of staff's job is to make sure that the president in this situation has the time and background to make a decision, and that the right people are in the room to advise him.
Did you, and that sounds difficult enough, but did you review pardons along the way that would make it to the president's desk?
Any memo, briefing memo, or decision memo came through my office before I went to the president, and I would review those.
Did you review any memo or briefing memo regarding the pardons of President Biden's family? Was anything prepared?
I don't recall. I don't have any specific recollection. There were meetings, and I was in some of those meetings, but I don't have a recollection on whether there was briefing or decision memo.
When did those, sitting back, when did those meetings begin about President Biden pardoning his family?
I think in the final week or two of the administration. It was late, but it was obviously well in advance of the 19th, because he spent time on it several times.
Do you know how many meetings there were?
I don't. In pardons in general, as I said earlier, the president was very, very deep in. And there were many iterations on, if not all, then certainly the vast majority of these pardons, including the ones that we're referring to here.
Can I introduce another incident?
Give him the document that he's going to say.
Mark, this is exhibit 6. This is dated February 23rd, 2024. So you were chief of staff at this point, correct, sir?
Yes, I was.
And this is a memorandum to Deanna Evans, an associate counsel from Isa Qasim, deputy associate counsel, CC Gabriel Barnett, Senior Legal Assistant Grace John Wall, Special Assistant to the White House Counsel, subject clemency process. Did I read that right?
Yes.
And I'm happy to give you some time to review this, but just for the record, I'll describe it as laying out the various steps
Look at-
for clemency decisions from
I've never seen
White House
that.
intake to its
Like-
passage to the White House counsel's office to the president, or the White House making an announcement of the clemency package.
You're going to see he gets really upset here in a little bit, but it's very interesting. I don't know where they got this document from. I don't know if you ever did see it or whatever, but it's very interesting. It comes from a deputy legal counsel and a legal counsel associate within the Biden administration. Yet he never saw this chief of staff. I find that fishy.
I'm going to direct you to page 4 of this. In the first bullet, which is about, I don't know, third way down, presidential approval. You see
So this is these pages aren't numbered,
I'm
so
sorry. It's the last page.
the last page, okay. And where are we on the last page?
Presidential approval.
Turn to a little bit.
And I will read. Presidential approval. Once staff set clears the decision memo in appendix, it is sent to the president for approval. Note, given the president's schedule, it can often take days or weeks for the president to review and approve the clemency package. The chief of staff's office has been helpful in getting the paper in front of him for his review. He has previously asked the White House counsel to discuss the candidates with him, although in the last round, the vice president's approval was sufficient to obtain his approval.
That last sentence, the vice president's approval on most pardons or lots of pardons and clemencies in the last 2 weeks because the president was too busy, it'd be okay for Kamala Harris to approve that. That is dangerous because by the Constitution, it's the president alone who has the ability to give pardons. So let's just listen to this argument.
Does the president ever provide approval instead of the president for pardons?
No, I think what this is referring to, and I do have a recollection of this, there was a time with something to do with a categorical pardon where the president wanted the vice president's view before he made his decision around
That's totally
given her experience as an attorney general and lawyer. So I do remember him getting her input, and her input was important to his decision, but he absolutely made the decision, as he did on everything.
If that's what was meant, why doesn't it say that?
Yeah, right.
Well, one question I have
Oh.
is, I'm a little confused.
So she asked him a pointed question. If that's what it meant, why didn't it say that? Now, instead of answering the question, he's going to try to turn it around. Remember, he said he recollected this. In other words, he recollected that memo. And that's what I heard anyways. Yet he now is going to try to turn around and put it back on them by saying, this isn't a memo that ever came to my desk. Listen and see. It's kind of brilliant, but it's also shady as hell.
In that, first of all, this is a briefing memo, as we talked about before. But then why are all these comments here? Because nothing would ever go to the president or even come to my office if there are all these comments. So do we know whether this was actually a briefing memo for the president?
I recognize that this is probably a draft document, but none of those comments seem to be aimed at the bullet and sub-bullet that we're talking about right now. So I'm just wondering, that doesn't seem to be a point of contention for the person editing this document.
Well, but what is, and this is where you need to understand the process, is nothing
Smug. Listen to that smug. What is, and what you need to understand the process.
would come to my office, let alone to the president, if there were comments
What's it woman? That's now.
in the margin.
That means there was
So
a follow on.
there are
It went
many
to the
examples.
president. And it's
of
something that the
draft
president
briefing memos
could approve pardons.
that
Again,
never go to the president and never come to my office or anyone else's office.
No, I recognize that.
So I just don't, I don't think of this as something, I've clearly never seen it before. It doesn't mean that it could have gone to the president. I'm not suggesting
I clearly never seen it. Just earlier you said, oh, I recollect this.
it. It definitely did not. But certainly something with comments can be what Deanne Evans, who reports in turn to Ed Siskel, who in turn would have to get sign off from the senior advisors on a memo before it would come to my office. And then I would have to sign off before it goes to the president's office. So the idea that an associate counsel has drafted something and that has then become known throughout the White House or agreed to by anyone makes zero sense.
Yeah, point taken, and I'm less interested in whether this document made it to you or made it to the president for that matter. I'm more curious about why even an associate counsel or people in the White House counsel's office believe that it was appropriate. It appears to me that they believe it was that the vice president's approval was sufficient to obtain the president's approval.
Nothing like that.
That's such a great point. How is the vice president approval sufficient to get the president's approval? That makes no sense at all within our constitutional framework.
Ever happened on any decision. So I can't speak for how a deputy associate counsel and an associate counsel drafted a memo. I can tell you that I would be very surprised and disappointed if something like that ever would go through an editing process, come to my office, and then go to the president of the United States, because it would have been said that's not correct. I assume in any organization you have more junior people with less knowledge and different opinions.
I'm doing this for fun. I also want to share my thoughts.
To mine, I'd never seen this before. I certainly don't recall it. And the fact that it is a draft with a dozen, maybe 2 dozen
comments in it.
That doesn't signify any policy or guidance for that matter about anything.
That's the question.
Did you ever discuss with Mr. Reed whether the vice president had given the approval for any pardons in President Biden's stead?
No, because it would never happen. No one would allow for that to happen, ever.
But how do you know? Was it Bruce Reed's portfolio, for lack of a better term?
I worked with Bruce Reed. I know Bruce Reed's rigor, and that a decision on anything that was presidential, not made by the president,
so I see
Bruce would never, ever allow that to happen.
Don't you think that would be a lot?
It's at the end here, but I thought
that would be
contentious. A pretty cool thing to see.
There would be a lot less. There would be fewer questions about this kind of trust that you have in Bruce Reed or Rosa Poe.
No.
If President Biden had just signed every pardon or clemency.
All right. Well, there you go. Instead of answering the question from a memo that was given to him, that was drafted by the deputy legal counsel and one of their associates, Diana Evans, where it said, because of the time to get all these pardons done, the vice president could approve it. That is against the Constitution. So Joe Biden wasn't signing all these pardons. He wasn't making all these decisions. Why? They're trying to say he was too busy. I say he was totally incompetent and a fool at that point. He didn't have his full faculties. Not his fault. My mother passed away in August. She had Alzheimer's, dementia. for the last 12 years. She died at 85 years old. It started kicking in when she was like 78. And boy, once it kicked in, she became a shell of herself within 3 years. And my mother was a nurse, very competent, unbelievable. Yet within 3 years, she didn't even know who I was. So anyways, there you go. Thanks for watching. This is WWP Reacts. And if you like this kind of content, please like and subscribe and follow. Yeah, talk to you next time. Thanks a lot.